What's up, guys? This is BlackMoonDragon here. I'm here with KvChaosGamer, and I'd like to apologize for the long wait on this episode. It's just that we're both really busy. I've got college, and you've got You said you have work, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much a full-time job. And for anyone that's curious or wants to know, I make pizzas. Yeah,
Could
pretty
you
boring.
could you imagine like what it would be like if we ever got big and were recognized and somebody went over to your shop and were like, "Okay, I'd like it. Hey, you're that guy on YouTube. What are you doing here?" Could you imagine that?
I don't know how I would react to that. It's like, well, I can make you $5 pepperoni pizza if you want.
Okay. So, anyway, for today's episode of Urban Legend Busters, we're going to do a video game creepypasta, because we haven't done any yet, and this one's going to be called Playing God. Are you...
No, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I just had to say this. Is this actually our first time doing a creepypasta that's not kind of like what we did with the Russian sleep experiment and what was that one other one we did? I forgot.
Let's see, we did the Russian sleep experiment, we've done Eyeless Jack, and we've done the showers.
Yeah, I think this is our first time doing a creepypasta that's, based on a video game.
Yeah, well, you pointed out that we haven't done one, so I thought it'd be appropriate that we'd get, at least one of everything out of the way. Anyway, this pasta is relatively short, so I'm gonna put on the creepiest tone of voice I can muster and read it aloud to you guys, so... here we go. Hey guys. Thought you might like to know about this game I recently downloaded. I found it on an old website for games that kind of flunked at release. It contained everything from the late 90s FPS games anywhere up to 2007. I was browsing through when I saw a section listed as RPG and simulation. I'm kind of a sucker for this kind of game, so I had to look around. The games were listed in columns, big blocks of text that made my eyes blur when I attempted to look through them. There was one game, however, that was not in a column. It was standing solitary at the top of the page, overshadowed by ads. The game was called Simulation Star Sign. When I clicked on it, there was quite a lot of comments in the discussion page. Most people were just talking about how to install and download. A few, however, mentioned how bad the ending was. Not really bothered about spoilers, I searched for the ending on Google. It took me through about 3 to 4 pages before I found something worth reading. It was a review website for underappreciated games. I skipped most of the info, but one thing caught my eye. It said, "Don't get too familiar with your characters. They don't last long." This was hidden under a spoiler banner. So I found the page I was on before and downloaded it. It started up fine, which I really wasn't expecting from such an old site. The game had a README file with some basic info about the developer and estimated sales. The graphics were pretty decent for a 2004, at least that's when the copyright was taken out. It looked a little like The Sims, but it was a centered third-person camera rather than a bird's-eye view. The first thing I saw was a long bar with green filling at the bottom of the screen. There was no character creation or any choosing of stats or traits. I was simply spawned into this park near a busy road. It took me a while to get going, but I eventually figured out the basic controls and it got a good setup in a small apartment on the east side of the map. A small icon popped up above my character's head, showing a picture of a knife and fork. It was a sign that I assumed it was a sign that I had to eat. I went over to the oven and began cooking a dish. It didn't say what. All that was shown was the icon, make dinner. This was not simply a case of my character putting some dish in the oven, however. He began cluttering through drawers and cupboards to find all the equipment he needed. This was when things got a little odd. It appeared as though my character couldn't find something. He began rummaging through the drawers, getting more and more frustrated. This carried on to a terrifying extent. He began pulling out drawers from units and chucking them across the room, sending things flying across the floor. This was when the little green bar at the bottom of the screen started to do something. A small part of it began to scratch away, like a scratch card lottery ticket. It revealed, I ca. That's all that could be seen. My character looked up quickly and smacked his head on an overhead cupboard, shouting out loud profanities in the sim-like language. More of the bar began to scratch away. It now read, I can't D. The screen then faded to black. When it faded back in again, my character was lying on the floor, eyeing up a kitchen knife on the floor. I now knew why the game was banned. It was interesting, so I think I'll continue for now. I've currently got it windowed as I write this. Okay, so a couple of hours have passed, and this is just getting creepy. My character is just continuing to fail at day-to-day tasks, and is getting more and more frustrated as he does so. The bar has now revealed the words, I can't deal with this shh. There is hardly any of the green bar left. But my character seems to be calming down now. Another bubble has just popped up above him. This looks like an animation. It looks like he's falling through the air. He just passed from trees to tree trunks, and before the ground became visible, the bubble disappeared. The kitchen is still a mess apart from the knife. He picked that up and put it back in a safe place. It has a gleaming light surrounding it, not sure what it means. I have to say, I'm a little shocked by the game, but the world is getting more and more detailed. This guy is looking at his computer right now. His face keeps changing. He keeps switching hair color, race, gender. I guess it must be a bug. Everything is so detailed right now. I'm beginning to see what it says on the screen, but it's still a bit of an orange-colored blur. I can see it now. What he, she, my character is reading. Go now. Somewhere safe. Lock yourself in if you can. A timer has appeared. It's counting down and the knife logo has appeared again. I'm sorry. And that's where this story ends. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest, I think that this is gonna be a really short discussion, but I'd like to start off by asking you, Chaos, if anything jumped out at you, anything that seemed out of place.
Well, coming from someone who, and this is probably going to be sound a little silly, but coming from someone who plays video games, the one thing that kind of bugged me a little when he was like kind of going through the different kinds of games, when he said, like, what was it, like an RPG simulator?
Yes.
When he said that what was the exact word? Like, did he say like, this is my type of game?
Yeah, his exact words are, "I'm kind of a sucker for this kind of game, so I had to look around."
And correct me if I'm wrong, but when something like an RPG simulator be like more of a genre than a game?
Well,
You know, like,
it just says it's a section listed on the site that he was on.
oh, okay.
Well, was there anything that seemed a little unnatural to you?
Uh, um,
Because, I mean, I read through the story, and it was
I,
a,
I'm
how,
sorry, go ahead.
you know, the thing about the story was, it didn't feel particularly creepy to me, and
The ending kind of confused me a little.
well, the thing is, I have something to say about the ending, but I kind of want to save that for last. So
Okay.
I want to get through the mid-story stuff. Like, didn't it bother you that he admits that the stuff in the game was kind of creepy, but he continued anyway?
I mean, hey, there's some pretty creepy, real creepy games out there. I mean, I don't know if you heard of it. Like, I personally haven't played it, but there's this one game. I want to say it's from the '90s, late '90s. It's called Harvest, and it's a pretty like creepy game. And I've seen some of the gameplay footage for it, and it's like, wow, it's like, okay, you know how I'm a fan of the Dead Space series, right?
Yeah.
I love that game, but this Harvest game, I don't know if I can play it. That's just how creepy it is.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. You know, the guy admits that there's something weird with the game, but
Mm-hmm.
let's just assume for a second that curiosity does get the better of him. You know, the stuff that he described in the game, you know, I mean, it would creep me out, but it would also bore me to death, you know? Like, okay, I see that my sim is getting frustrated and he's acting erratic, and
I mean,
it would,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just now paused thinking, didn't he even mention if he's even in control of his character? Or the
just,
character he was going as?
to some extent. I mean, like, when he said that he needed to cook something, he was able to click on the proper icon, but it seems like after that, the character seemed to take on its own erratic behavior. But the thing is, I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean, on one hand it is kind of creepy that the character gets frustrated, but me, when I play games, you know, I want to stay entertained, and if the character suddenly started acting of its own and I didn't have control on it, it's acting erratic, if it were me personally, I would have just lost interest in the game. You know, I wouldn't have been compelled to... I'm not sure that I would have necessarily been curious enough to find out what happens next, but we all know the saying about how curiosity killed the cat, so I suppose I could give this a pass. Anything else that kind of stuck out to you?
I mean, other than, like, pretty much, the ending, I mean, I guess with me, since I kind of have a thing, like the horror games, especially ones, that are real good, Because for me, a perfect horror game, and I know I love Dead Space, but for me, a good horror game is perhaps one that doesn't really rely too much, on jump scares. And I'm not, bashing, on Dead Space or bashing on some other, horror games, like the Five Nights at Freddy's series, because I know that has a strong following, and I know you love that game.
I do.
But like for me, a perfect horror game is one that doesn't really rely too much on any kind of jump scares. It just keeps you more on the edge of your seat, wondering, like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Like, oh, like, am I gonna survive this? Oh, is this monster gonna go away?
Well, I'd like to bring that up, and from what he describes in the game, it doesn't kind of have that feel, Like,
Mm-hmm.
what he describes is, it seems a little mundane to me. It didn't really keep me on the edge of my seat per se, and in real life, I'm not sure how much that if I were in this situation, it would bother me, and, you know, the story itself, kind of felt the same to me. And by the way, I'm not like trying to bash anyone here. Do not go in the comment section and saying, "Oh my gosh, you're being cruel to the author." I'm not in any way trying to bash the author or anything. It's just I personally wasn't that creeped out by it. And I think that being said, I'd like to go to the very end of the story. And I think that the implication is that he was in the game and is at the very end and was killed or something. And my issue with that is that, okay, if that's the case, well, how did the writer write this then, If whatever evil force is acting here got the author, how is the author able to write this? And now I know that at one point in the story he does say that he's writing the story as he's playing the game, but even then, you'd have to actually submit the story and post it somewhere. You see what I'm saying? So even if he realized the end was near, would he really have had enough time to post the story before whatever it was killed him?
One question though, is there a date that shows when the story was like posted or written?
I'm looking. I'm looking.
Because I might have something for that.
It doesn't really say.
Alright, well, anyways, let's assume that this is like around, like, maybe 2000, like somewhere in the mid-2000s.
Well, remember, he said that the site he was on contained games that were anywhere from the 90s to 2007, so...
Okay, well then, how about this? Let's assume it's like 2011, 2012, somewhere around that time frame. Like, at that time, I mean, it's now possible to have more than one monitor and to have, different things displayed on each monitor. So maybe as he was writing on one, like, monitor, he had something up on another that was the game playing, and then he may have, on the other monitor, he may have, I guess maybe, like, I don't know, like, how fast it would be, but maybe he found a way to, like, open up a new tab, and...
He said that he was playing the game in windowed mode while he was writing it.
Okay, so maybe he didn't have a second monitor.
Well, even then, it wouldn't explain, like, why, even if he knew that the end was near, and that's why the ending was so confusing, even if that was the case, it wouldn't explain how we had enough time to type this up, go to some site, and post it, you know what I mean?
Maybe he had multiple windows open, I don't know.
Okay, well, this has been a short video and a short explanation, but it's just that the story really... Excuse me. It's just that the story really doesn't leave much to go with, and overall, it was just kind of confusing a little. But anyway, I will still say props to the author. It definitely was an interesting concept. It just could have used a little bit more meat or flesh on the bones. So, for my final conclusion, I'm going to say that this story is fictional. It didn't really happen. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same thing. I mean, the story is pretty much busted. That's that's also not to say there's games like that. That are just weird and creepy. And they kind of do stuff like that. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's games out there. You just gotta look for them. But what's described in the story, I find it too hard to believe.
Yeah, it just didn't feel natural.
I mean, like you said, we're not trying to bash the author or the story. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is an interesting concept, like you said, and and the whole idea, like the type of game he was playing, it is interesting since there are some games out there that are kind of like that. So it would have
Okay.
been interesting to kind of know more. Maybe
Yeah.
have a little more depth. Maybe a little more development.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think the final verdict on this from both of us is busted. However, that's not to say that somebody can't release a creepy game out there just mess with us. In fact, one of these episodes, we might try to find an urban game legend that is real or something. Hint, hint, wink, wink. So anyway, that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. This is BlackMoonDragon with his best friend in the whole wide world.
KvChaosGamer.
You guys have a wonderful day, and bye for now.
Bye for now.